Welcome to what I think is the 7th episode of the Adoreum Conversations podcast series. My name is Marcus Watson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Adoreum Partners, which is a global friendship network of business leaders, investors, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists. Adoreum believes in human relationships in a disintermediated world, and our values are compassion, purpose, integrity, friendship, and fun. We create events in London, Zurich, LA, New York, and other cities around the world, or we used to at least, to have meaningful discussions and talk about important issues and be the catalyst for positive action. And we started these conversations a few weeks ago, and we're probably doing about 2 a week now. And this is a special Adoreum Conversations because I'm in conversation with my business partner and chairman, David Tabizel.
Hello.
David, how you doing?
I'm all right. We're all in lockdown, and I'm increasingly coming to terms with how bald I am by using Zoom all the time. But we'll live. How are you, Marcus? You coping all right? You're in.
Good.
Where do we find you?
I'm in the countryside.
Whereabouts, roughly?
In lockdown in Hampshire.
In Hampshire, and I'm talking to you from my rather messy musical study in North London. And I guess we ought to tell the 4 or 5 people in our family who we are while they're watching this. So, do you want to just explain yourself, Marcus? Because people don't know who the hell we are, really.
Okay, well, I'll start from the top. I mean, I started out in private banking and then moved into the investment or merchant banking division of the private bank I worked at, Duncan Lorry, and became really interested in technology investing and became an analyst. Was involved in investing in lots of very early stage technology businesses. In the mid 1990s, I worked with some incredibly bright technology guys and investment bankers, and then I left that. It was a very conservative private merchant bank to set up a new investment management business focused on technology called Sigma, working with a couple of very bright guys. And again, we did the same thing. We were backed by a bunch of ultra net worth individuals, and we worked on really interesting early stage technology deals. And from there, I left to set up an internet company, which a lot of us did back then. This is going back to probably 97, 98. So kind of Web 1.0. Came up with an idea, created a business, raised loads of funding, and did that, which was great fun. And I've been an entrepreneur ever since then, I guess. I was probably, my 20s still. Mid to late 20s, and built up an internet company. I mean, we had hundreds of employees. We had a massive, what we used to call burn rate, but we had a successful business called kitbag.com, which was Europe's first sports e-commerce business, which we sold. And after selling that business, we created a digital agency with the best people in our content business. And then I went on to kind of invest in companies and do deals through a vehicle called Ironbridge Capital Partners. And then from there, post the Lehman Brothers collapse, the last crisis, I guess, which doesn't seem too bad considering how awful this one's going to be. When Lehman Brothers collapsed, I set up Adoreum with a guy called Rob Hersoff, who I had known since the dot-com days. And in fact, you knew as well, David. And we basically created a business to elegantly monetize our networks, because we felt that a lot of brands, financial services, luxury lifestyle brands, really didn't understand their customers and didn't have relationships with them, and we felt that we did. We started the business with 2 clients, Bombardier Business Aviation, who at the time had asked Rob to be a non-exec director. He had just sold his private aviation business, Marquis Jets, to NetJet, so he couldn't do that. But he said if they wanted access to his network, they could hire this new business development consultancy he'd set up with me. So they were our first client, and I was a non-executive director of the Arts Club at the time. And Ironbridge had just done a sale and lease back of the building, and Adoreum did the relaunch of that. So they were our first 2 clients. And then because Rob had been on the main board at Richemont, we worked with a lot of the Richemont brands. And I mean, over the years, we've kind of worked with brands in every vertical of luxury lifestyle and financial services. Started investing in companies, started creating businesses with bright entrepreneurial friends, and basically as we were fortunate enough to exit a few of those businesses, we decided to resign all our consultancy clients and just focus on investing. But we still wanted to keep our network going, which has always been the heart and soul of our business. And we've probably got over 35,000 people on our database. And we've always loved doing events. So we created a club about 5 years ago now. And we still run that. And that's a club of friends, really, people that we've known for a long time, entrepreneurs, business leaders, philanthropists, investors. We've got family offices, private equity funds, some big companies like Bloomberg are members, and then all the companies that we invest in, and all the businesses that we help found. And David, we've known each other probably for, I'm just trying to think, I mean, way over 2 decades, I would have thought. But when I met David was, and I know you get a bit embarrassed when I say this, but David was the Steve Jobs of the internet industry in Europe, really. So he co-founded Derlacher, and Derlacher were funding lots of and coming up with lots of interesting ideas and creating businesses and funding businesses. And he was the guy we all went to for funding. So that's how we knew each other. But he was always quite difficult to get hold of, but I managed to kind of stay in touch with him. And he retired probably when you were still in your late 20s, weren't you?
Yeah,
or before you were 30.
I guess we've actually got some we've got quite a similar set of backgrounds in that we've both been analysts, we've both been corporate financiers, we've both been tech and media entrepreneurs, and we both love people. So what I love about Adoreum is it connects people in business. So whether it's events or parties or sharing knowledge or raising money or investing in things or just putting people together for the sheer hell of it, or it's wonderful. And business is about people, and it's lovely to be involved in a company that really cares about having a good time, operating, putting together people of integrity and seeing what happens. And those of us that love business because it's exciting and not just because of the money, but because it's connection with people and gives us meaning. Adoreum is I think a unique international network, a members club. It's all kinds of things. It's a network that isn't cynical, and I just think it's a wonderful thing to be involved with, and it makes people happier.
So yeah, I brought you out of retirement effectively to become our chairman when Rob moved back to South Africa.
So I'm 55 years old. How old are you, Marcus?
48.
Well, you're barely a teenager in corporate terms. So my background was I initially studied economics before a bit of psychology, and then was a publisher and a writer. Started a stockbroking firm after I started out my publishing company, and that became an investment bank called Derlacher. And from there, because I'm a little crazy, decided to start businesses or put businesses together based on the research that the team and I were doing in sectors like football, film, comedy, and video games. And we built a load of companies worth some hundreds of millions, some billions. I was a co-founder of something called Autonomy, which has had a bit of a strange ending recently, but was worth $10-11 billion. Demon Internet, one of the first ISPs, 365, which was $1 billion company that just came out of inventing a football website, really in my bedroom when I was stuck living abroad and I couldn't read about my beloved Arsenal. And the creation of businesses from ideas and seeing them employ hundreds of people, sometimes thousands, and seeing some of them still here 25 years later, it's a joy. I'm not a great novelist. I'm not even a novelist, but it's a lovely thing to be involved with people and creativity. And I think that's what, when I moved back to the UK recently, really excited me. And Adoreum is a place where you can meet people, you can learn, you can have funds, and it's almost a sort of ecosystem. And right now in lockdown, I reckon that the coronavirus is going to change the way we all do business for the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe forever. And putting people together in a meaningful way so we feel less alone and we can collaborate and we can, all deals, every single deal is somebody doing something with somebody else, often a group of people. And that's what Adoreum is about. And I'm excited to see what other businesses we can help and create and what other fun we can have. So, Marcus, let's just talk about today. Really, I just want to talk about you for a second, and we can have a bit of an argument together and have a bit of a fight. But
no, I want to ask you about you too.
Well, you can do. We can spar. And the thing is, right? We're Marcus has built an incredible business where we're a group of friends, and that's how. And there's nothing better. You can take all the algorithms in the world, right? Can't you? But people are the best intelligence system. And what Marcus has created at Adoreum, and I'm sure if anybody comes to our meetings or watches our stuff or gets involved with us, you'll feel this. It's a really friendly place in a cold world. And I want to ask you, where were you born? How did all this start? Where did you get this amazing personality from, this care of people?
Yeah, I was born in Ipswich, of all places, which Rob always used to think was in the northeast, because Rob never kind of moved really outside of Mayfair, Kensington, Chelsea, so he had
very
no
flat
kind
there,
of concept where Ipswich was. Yeah, very, very flat. And I left Ipswich when I was probably about 18.
Was that due to a scandal, or you just bored?
No, just bored. I got very bored in Ipswich. I never liked it. I love Suffolk, always have loved the countryside, but Ipswich, I didn't like. I didn't have a great experience there when I was young. But I was quite sick when I was young, so I think I just had all that kind of legacy.
What were you sick with?
Kind of stuff, Crohn's disease,
right?
Which I've talked about a fair bit actually on some of the conversations that I've done over the last few weeks. So yeah, no, I was really sick. I mean, like properly sick when I was
nearly
11. Nearly died, and actually I was diagnosed when I was 11 in Great Ormond Street. But back then they didn't know very. I mean, there still is no cure for Crohn's. I mean, they're making some kind of advances now, but back then, I mean, I was actually recommended to smoke back then, that's just how long ago it was and how nuts.
Is that because they just thought you might as well? Why smoke?
Well, I think the reasoning was it kind of would relax you, and they kind of had figured out that Crohn's kind of affected people who were quite anxious and worried. And I don't know that would somehow chill them out. I know do they
still do that?
Oh God, no. This is going back a really long time, obviously.
Have you noticed that recent research though on coronavirus has shown that smokers have got a lower mortality rate? Did you know that?
Yeah, or is it? Yeah, I mean, I think the virus. If you're a smoker, it's more difficult for the virus to take hold, isn't it? But if it does take hold, then I think as a smoker, you're more likely to die from having it. But yeah, I mean, it does seem to be something. I mean, this is completely different, obviously, because this relates to my gastrointestinal tract rather than my respiratory system. But yeah, no. So I got really sick, and I got really sick again when I was 15 and had my first major, what they call resection, where they had to operate on me, and I've had 3 of those actually. In fact, one kind of approximately every 10 years. But I've learned to manage it, and I'm now pretty fine, I would say, really. I mean, it's done under the care of a consultant, still always looking at improving my health and wellness, which is one of the things, obviously, as Adoreum, that we look at a lot of companies in that sector. And in fact, I did a conversation yesterday with Joe Cross, who is an amazing guy who had an autoimmune disease, very successful entrepreneur, had an autoimmune disease, effectively cured it through juicing, through diet. So I'm always kind of exploring that kind of thing. And I've been quite lucky, to be honest. I think there's a lot of people who have Crohn's disease who have it, a lot worse than me. And in actual fact, I kind of now today, I consider Crohn's disease to have been a bit of a superpower, in that it's driven me to do stuff. It's driven me to do all the things that I've done, because I was always so worried about getting sick and not having earned enough money to support myself, my family. That, to be honest, I think it's kind of been a blessing in disguise. Although I've always kind of ignored it as a condition, didn't want to talk about it. But then a few years ago, I met a guy called Rick Parfitt Jr., who's become a friend of mine, who's the legend Rick Parfitt's son. Rick Parfitt Jr. is a super cool guy. He's a professional musician, amazing musician, race car driver, good-looking guy, and he's got Crohn's disease, and he's an ambassador for Crohn's. And I thought, do you know what? I need to kind of tell people my story, because there are going to be young people out there 11, 15, whatever, who are struggling with Crohn's disease and perhaps think they're not going to have a normal life, they're not going to, you know, get married, have kids, run a successful business, etc. So part of what I like to do now is kind of tell my story and try and give hope and inspire, you know, young people who have Crohn's. Well, so anyway, sorry, that was a long-reaching answer to where I was born.
No, it's very important. Since we're all stuck in lockdown, I'm just going to say something which shows that we're improvising. Marcus, you're in the dark. Any way we can get a light in front of you, so we can. That'll be behind you. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah. So, yeah, I much like Marcus while he's gone. I had a seminal experience when I was 17. I was beaten up by 7 or 8 skinheads who basically played football with my head, and I had a year of operations, and it terrified me, but it connected me with my own mortality. And I think, you know, I must have started about 22 companies, and I feel that urgency, that need, the realization that life, you got to do one. It can be short, and 2, I wouldn't say we're on our own, but you've got to be a self-starter, haven't you? And you've got to make your own reality. And I think when you have such a massive experience that it can either make you or break you, and sometimes it's a bit of both. When you were growing up, right? So Crohn, when did the symptoms start?
I mean, they started actually as soon as I started secondary school. So I would have just been 11 because I was quite young for my year. So
were things, I mean, can you remember before that? Is there a sort of before and after Crohn's?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's difficult to kind of remember that far back to before Crohn's. My life Crohn's has always been there. But I mean, I just started getting really tired and having lots of pain and losing a lot of weight. And initially, because Crohn's was a very new disease that certainly the doctors in Ipswich didn't know much about, they didn't think it was a physical disease. They actually thought it was psychological. And I got sent to lots of psychiatrists and stuff. And you know, literally had to beg for help because I knew it wasn't a psychological disease. I was in real pain, but you know, that's where they were back then. But then my mum and dad, they tried everything, God bless them, to try and figure out what it was. Took me to a private doctor. He put me on some prednisolone, which is a steroid, and I got a bit better, got quite a lot better. And that's when he said, look, I think he might have this condition. Let's get him into Great Ormond Street and have all the tests done. And that's when they diagnosed it.
Can you remember being very scared?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, when you're 11 and you know you feel pretty awful anyway, to go up to London, which was, you know, that was the big smoke if you were from Suffolk, and spend nearly a month in hospital. Yeah, I mean that was scary. That was really scary.
Anyone else in your family have Crohn's?
Well, we don't really know because my dad was adopted by his aunt. So his side of the family, we don't really know. But on my mum's side, and she's from a massive family in Switzerland, there isn't any Crohn's. No. So the chances are it is hereditary. So the chances are it's from my dad's side. But no, he certainly never had Crohn's.
One of the things that you and I are working on at the moment is loss of genetics. We'll come to that later, but we ran your genetics tests and we looked at some of the early stuff, and Crohn's comes up everywhere, doesn't it? It's going to change the way we operate day to day. May even change the way we have children. I don't know. I mean, it's an extraordinary thing working out when you more and more you upload your genome to various sites and go, yes, Crohn's, rheumatoid arthritis, or
yeah. Although I do really think that with Crohn's, it's obviously an autoimmune disease. I do think, and I have treated it through diet and through exercise and through alternative and complementary therapies, and I really believe that that's helped a lot. And talking to Joe yesterday, Joe Cross. I really think that actually using his kind of juicing method, I may well be able to put it into remission. forever.
Now you've been a successful businessman. We'll talk more about that. But my question is, do you think you've been successful because of Crohn's?
Yeah, partly I'd say. I mean, it's the thing that's really driven me.
And has it given you more compassion as well, do you think? I mean, what else?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we talk about compassion a lot within Adoreum. And we have a partner who really should be, director of compassion, Welsh Andy, who's probably the most compassionate person I know, and you know as well, I'm sure.
Yeah,
compassion's really, is really important. And I think when you're as sick as I was, and when the thing that happened to you, I think that does make you more compassionate, because you've been there, you've been to a pretty dark place, and so you can put yourself in, other people's shoes who, when you get better, who are sick. So yeah, no, I think that's definitely driven it. But 100%, the reason I think I worked as hard as I did, and I worked really bloody hard from the age of, starting work to probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I worked 14, 16 hours a day. I actually trained myself to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning so I could pack more work in.
Let's go back a bit. What did your parents do for a living?
So my mum and dad both come from really humble beginnings. So my mum comes from let me turn my phone off. My mum comes from a very kind of poor family in Switzerland. Massive Catholic family. They have
poor families in Switzerland? They do?
Yeah, no, they do, absolutely.
Well, they only get 3 Rolexes
and they
each.
certainly did, and they certainly did back then. So my mum's dad died when she was 7. Her mum when she was 15. She was essentially sent to work as a housekeeper in Zurich. So she comes from kind of middle of the countryside. So she was kind of house staff. She really started off with nothing at all, but big family who kind of, I guess supported them. But she was one of the youngest ones. So all the older brothers and sisters went off, had tons of kids quite early on. I actually found out today that my oldest aunt died actually last night, which is really sad.
Sorry,
she
of
was
the corona, or
no, it wasn't of corona. She'd been sick for a while, and she was kind of in her 80s. But yeah, no, thank you. But so my mum really did come from a very humble background, and my dad did too. My dad's mum had him when she was quite young, and because she couldn't kind of look after him, essentially gave my dad to her older sister, who was really like my grandma. She was an amazing lady. So yeah, he grew up with very little as well. And I mean, my dad is incredibly driven, and he worked in construction from a very early age. I mean, obviously left school at 15, went to work, did really well. And one of the guys who he dealt with in one of the firms that he worked for just thought he was great and said, "I'll set you up in your own business." A Scottish guy did that for him, and he set up the company, which is a piling equipment business, which I'm still involved in. I'm a non-executive director of, and I did the management buyout for my dad. We as a family bought the other 50% of the business about 15 years ago that we didn't own because of my background as a corporate financier. So yeah, my dad was very driven. I mean, he built that business from scratch, and it's a great business. The reason I love it actually is because it's a proper family business.
What does it do day to day, the business?
So we hire, sell, and service very heavy piling equipment. So very specialist piling equipment. So sort of piling machines that you use to build skyscrapers.
Nothing to do with the removal of
stuff.
Hemorrhoids.
Nothing to do with that. No, purely mechanical. And yeah, so even the managing director, who's a good friend of mine, Phil, I think Phil is, how old would Phil be now? He'd probably be 57, 58, although he looks about 30. He's worked for my dad since he was 16. So, everybody in the firm pretty much has been there forever. So it's a proper family business. And my dad treats his staff incredibly well. He's super generous. We always share profits with everyone in the company, always have done. And so that's engendered, fantastic loyalty. And because of that, I love the business. We still run an apprenticeship scheme. We still take on, 16-year-olds from school and train them up and give them a lifelong career. It's a great business to be involved in.
Marcus, did your dad teach you how to be, there are, I guess there are a lot of different ways of making money. There's being dishonest. There's being a narcissistic bastard, which probably most billionaires have to be, where they see people as objects. And then there's a way of building. You can be brilliant at something. You can be a genius. But apart from that, there's a way of building things by creating real business and getting the collaborative enthusiasm from teams that stay loyal to you, and gradually, by looking after people, making money simply because people want to work and enjoy working with and for you, and thus productivity goes up. But who taught you this? Was it your dad, or did you do it by?
I think it probably was. I think, I knew very early on that I didn't want to join the family business. I just didn't think. Number one, I didn't want to stay in Ipswich, but number two, I just didn't think it was sensible to have all of the family's eggs in one basket. I thought I needed to go out and do my own thing.
So what did you study, by the way?
So I did my first degree in biology.
Whereabouts?
And in Portsmouth. And I did that because I loved biology. I actually, initially, I wasn't going to go to university. I took a year off because I was quite young when I finished my A-levels, and I worked for a year as a wine delivery man. But then went to visit friends.
Hang on, you worked as a wine delivery man?
Yeah, I worked as a wine delivery man.
Where?
In Suffolk, but I used to deliver wine all over the country, like specialist wine. A wine merchant you'd probably know, actually, because you're into your wines, called Seckford Wines.
I don't.
Yeah.
What kind of wines were they? When was this?
Just very, very expensive specialist wines.
Haven't you noticed something? By the way, sorry to interrupt you, but until a few weeks ago, before, and we're talking to you from the end of April 2020, until a few weeks ago, I was getting all my food delivered. I was, I barely go out to buy a packet of crisps. Now, just when you think delivery of food and wine and everything else would be sacrosanct, we have to go and queue up next to each other. Now, what happened? I don't remember wine. Was this wine delivered to merchants, or wine delivered to people's houses?
It was delivered to both. It was delivered to specialist restaurants, to high net worth individuals, to merchants.
What did you learn from that?
Not much, if I'm honest.
No, fair enough. No, I always.
I just love the fact I had a company van and a mobile phone. And this is before, when they first came out. And it was all good.
And then after that, so you had a degree in biology, and then you delivered wine.
No. I delivered wine first. Then I went to Portsmouth to do a degree in biology. And then after I did that, I went to King's College in London to do a master's in international business management, which was kind of like an MBA for science graduates, because I knew I wanted to do business because I'd started setting up businesses at university.
Why did you do biology? What made you?
I loved biology, and in actual fact, I did at the time. I wanted to do medicine. So I thought, do biology. I hadn't got the grades to go straight into medicine. So I thought, do a biology degree and then go and do medicine. I've always loved, weirdly, because I've spent so much time in hospitals, I've always loved hospitals. I just find them really interesting, really fascinating. So anyway, my dad said to me, go and study something that you'll enjoy. So I love biology. So that's what I did. Giving that advice to my eldest daughter now, actually, in terms of the degree that she does. So I loved studying biology. It was really good fun, and I had an amazing time. And I guess I was catching up on living life, because I'd been quite sick when I was growing up. I went a bit nuts at university, and I had a great time. Got
How
a
do you
degree.
When you say you went nuts?
Well, I partied hard. I got into all of that kind of stuff.
But you enjoyed it.
It was the rave scene. That's when I got really interested in music, actually, as well. So so no, it was great fun. Absolutely loved it. And then came back to Ipswich and said, well, I want to do business. I'd quite like to go into the city because I think that would be a good grounding for me to learn about business. So I did a master's in international business management, which was amazing.
I mean, what year did you do your master's?
94, I'd say.
Right. Now,
1994.
The world is changing all the time, but and I have to talk to my kids who are sort of university age. Do you remember anything from your masters? Did you learn something? I mean, did you really?
Yeah, no. I mean, I learned a lot because I hadn't studied economics or accounting or anything up until that point. So, it was a great course because we were doing international trade, we were doing microeconomics, macroeconomics, philosophy. I mean, it was a really good course. I mean, it was
1 or 2 years.
1 year full time.
Did that change your life, that course? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it did, actually. I think it did. I mean, I wrote my dissertation weirdly on the use of futures and options by fund managers, and I thought, I need to understand, money. Even if I go back to to work in the family business, which I didn't think I would. I just thought, that's a really good grounding, and it was quite glamorous.
But why didn't you become a doctor though? What happened there?
I got more interested in business. I mean, when I was at university, I started trading in products, buying some cars and selling branded merchandise and stuff. I just became really interested in business. I loved it, and I loved the fact that I used to make money, and I used to have friends who had very little money, but because I was ducking and diving and wheeling and dealing, I had a bit of cash.
So at 22 or 23 years old, right? Well, whatever you were then. Do you think you're the same person now?
Yeah, I mean, I think in many ways I am. I still have a lot of the same, anxieties.
What's the big anxiety? What is the big anxiety?
I mean, the big anxiety has always been getting sick, I guess. That's always been the big anxiety. And then I think the anxiety underlying that has been, not having enough money to support myself and my family. I think that's the next. So that's the next anxiety.
It's a fear of it. And that's still there today because you've done very well. You've made millions, and we'll talk about some of the interesting bits and pieces that you're doing and we're doing. But is it still there? Because you really, I think
so. Yeah, not as much. I have to say, I'm much more laid back. I mean, if you talk to Twiz, who's one of our other partners in Adoreum, I'm sure he'll tell you that I was incredibly uptight, in the early days of Adoreum because, I was having to work so hard. I mean, I was, hustling every day, and it was tough. And I've definitely kind of taken my foot off the accelerator just so I can smell the roses, really. I mean, I know how important it is now to spend time with my family and my friends. I've always been really lucky from the friends perspective. I've got a very close group of friends who I went to school with, but I've also got an amazing group of friends, you, Snay, Dom, Andy, Twiz. I've got this amazing group of friends kind of within the Adoreum community. So I guess I've always
friendship
had that,
is particularly amongst men, and I know that women are very underrepresented in business, and that's not so good. But traditionally, I think women have been better at keeping friends and keeping in touch with friends. And I know I'm overgeneralizing here, but I think one of the great things about Adoreum, and this comes from you, I think, is that we are friends. There are thousands of us, and immediately there's very little small talk. It's straight into the meaningful stuff, and
it's not superficial. I mean, so when I worked as a banker, I didn't really enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed kind of being given kind of responsibility, and I enjoyed bringing in business and all that kind of stuff, but I just didn't like the environment at all. It was very selfish. It was it wasn't particularly collaborative. So, I mean, I only stayed in banking for 2.5 years or something before I set up my internet company. So,
have you set up businesses on your own, Marcus, or have you done it with partners generally?
Always with partners. Always with partners. Don't you
think? I mean, my experience has been that there really are two types of business people here. There is the lone wolf, and I got to meet several of the early founders of the internet. I know quite a few billionaires, and they are loners. They are.
They are. I mean, I know a lot of them too.
Single-minded people, and they can be. Some are pleasant, some aren't. Most have a degree of narcissism, or they're filling up a hole. They're proving themselves. Other people are happy. There are some very lovely rich people too, very rich people. But there are. I think almost the first thing is, I don't know. When I made a lot of money, I became very, very lonely, and it was. I made a lot of money in my early to mid 20s, which is far too early. You don't know what's going on at that point. And I now really do look for social entrepreneurs or collaborative entrepreneurs. And while you might make less money, and indeed as a team you might make less money overall, you can still do well and you can be happy. Now, I was going to ask you a question. Sorry, did you want to ask me something? Because I'm just rabbiting on to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just wanted to ask you what drove you? Because I mean, you achieved phenomenal success at such a young age. I mean, can you just tell me a little bit about or tell the listeners, because I know a little bit already, but a little bit about your background, how you grew up and how you got started in business.
Well, I grew up in North London I was an only child. More of that later or another time. My father was 50 years older than me, and my mum, both of them were essentially refugees. My father from a refugee Polish Jewish family. He was born in 1918. Escaping the Russian and Polish pogroms. And my mother actually was born in Nazi Germany, and in 1935, she's still with us, and had to walk across Europe. And her earliest memories are being dive bombed, hiding under bushes with Nazi airplanes trying to bomb her. She walked from Belgium to Calais, and the Ardennes to Calais, and managed to get on a boat to the UK in 1938. So a very jumpy family, a very small family, a family that was absolutely annihilated by the Holocaust, and a family of not religious Jews, but a family that felt, you always had the feeling that anything can happen. So personally, I've been primed for this coronavirus because I expect, someone to go, get out of your house and run. So I've always had a cupboard full of tins and medicine and toilet rolls. But anyway, I was okay. I was a bit lonely as an only child. I used to have fantasies about having brothers and sisters, but I kept busy. And my main fear was being bored, actually, because I had no one to play with. So I surrounded myself with lots and lots and lots of stuff. And the first thing that got me involved in business was when I wanted a video recorder. And my parents didn't have a lot of money. These video recorders in the late 70s were 600 quid, which is like £10,000 now. My mother said no. So I just went out and worked out how to earn the money, and that's how I got into business. After my 17-year-old trauma, which really, to be walking down a street when you're a 17-year-old, and for people to attack you from nowhere, jumping out of bushes, and really, they pretty much nearly killed me. And I had, as I said, lots of operations and no therapy after. I felt very, very much that, we are not so much alone, but hey, that really burst the bubble. I had loving parents. It really burst the bubble. So I thought, well, I better earn some money to build a wall, a platform that pushed me above the people that were attacking me. So I don't think I felt more empathetic. I think I felt terrified. I think I felt traumatized. And that was my motivation. And I was always going to become a barrister or something. I think I naturally would have been a writer or a journalist, but I chose economics at university simply because I wanted to make money. So I became, but I wouldn't say that was because of the joy of business. It was more the fear of poverty because you're on your own. So again, a similar reaction to you. Your anxiety comes through. You'll get ill and no one will look after you. You won't have enough money. Mine was the world ain't safe. Get away from these people, whether they are Nazis or skinhead muggers. Get away. Get enough money so you can protect yourself and indeed your family. And that was a massive motivation for me. I think I might have become a psychiatrist, actually. I think that's the other thing I wanted to do.
It is. I mean, I think that I think that's kind of super interesting. Like, all the successful people I know tend to have had something in their lives that's kind of made them incredibly anxious, and that's kind of what's driven them. And that in many ways is why I think, you know, there's such an issue with the children of ultra high net worth families, called second generation kind of families. In, you know, how do you motivate them to do what we did, to work as hard as we did, work as hard as our dads did, if you've got everything, you know?
Well, I made money earlier than you. In fact, I was worth hundreds of millions in my 20s. I'm not now. Lost it, spent it, and other things. But my kids grew up with servants, and I kept trying to work out what to do. And I remember building a house in Spain on top of a hill, behind gates, more gates, and building this enormous 37-roomed house full of servants. I used to get up in the morning. I couldn't even sleep because the gardeners would wake me up at 7 o'clock with loads of drills and screaming. I couldn't walk around in my underpants, which, by the way, Marcus, is my hobby. Because there were servants running around, and the kids never learnt to. They never learnt to tidy their rooms. They never learned, you know. Although, and I was just as anxious, by the way, because now I had a water bill of 100,000 euros a year, and etc. etc. So I just became even more anxious, and then I built a house that took me 8 years to sell, and I guess if we don't get, I mean, all I would say to anybody out here, if you have a trauma, right, and you'll know. Because if you have flashbacks, for God's sake, get therapy. Whatever it takes, get therapy. I didn't. And I reckon 10 years of my life went into some very strange directions because I didn't realize I was running away or covering up for stuff. But my kids...
I know, but look at the stuff that you achieved from being like that. I mean, same for me. You know, it's not a nice experience to feel all of that anxiety, but you do get to achieve lots of stuff from it.
I think one of the things that rich people have to do, and I don't consider myself rich anymore, is make sure their children are in touch with the real world, make sure their children are in touch with values and morality, and make sure that they are self-starters, making sure that they know how to tidy their room, that they know how to exist on no money, that they know how to get up in the morning and get self-discipline. And we're all different, and the education system isn't really designed for people who aren't fit into the standard stream of attainment and personality. But even so, the most important thing we can do in whatever situation we are, I think, as parents, this is something I've thought about, is our job as parents are to create independent, well-adjusted adults and allow them to flourish independently. And I think if you're rich or you're poor, or you're not mentally well, your children are going to pay the price. So it's weird. I mean, the problems of the rich, I mean, people don't want to hear that. But so many rich kids are unhappy and just lack a sense of identity. So when you became an entrepreneur, right, and as I did, and an analyst, as I did, it's interesting, and a lot of, anxiety, driven by anxiety, and then enjoyed the process of the deals. And you get a if anybody here does deals and transactions, you get a big adrenaline or dopamine rush out of these things. What do you think? When do you think you became successful? What was there a line in the sand?
I don't know, because for me it all happened very gradually. It didn't happen quickly. yeah, I mean, it was a really gradual process. And maybe that's a healthy thing, but when you make money, gradually, I think a lot of the anxieties just for some reason, although it's illogical, they still remain, and they still exist today, weirdly, because you get anxious about different things. You get anxious about losing your money then.
Yeah, I remember I was in the rich list once, and I remember looking at it, and I remember making tens of millions of pounds on one day, in theory, in my name on the stock market. My shares went up, and I became really, really depressed. I became depressed existentially because I thought to myself, is that all there is? And then how do I stop losing this? And I became paralyzed. I was like a rabbit in the headlights. Suddenly, this poor kid from North London was making millions, and people writing stories about me in the newspapers, and I tell you, I lost it. I haven't really been a very good entrepreneur since that moment. It just completely freaked me out. But there must have been a moment for you. I mean, I'll tell you my moment, really, I guess, was when I think when I started earning, I think when I sold my first £1 million worth of, it's a lot of money, isn't it? £1 million worth of shares in something. I went, wow, I'm a millionaire. And I don't know what that did. It was an anticlimax, but I guess I felt that was the beginning of myself as a business person. And I don't regard myself as a successful business person, by the way, at all. But I felt like, oh, that is an achievement. That really is an achievement. And you want to make money as a business person. You want to achieve things. You want to do things. But can you remember a moment where you went, oh, this is all right. I'm doing quite well here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there were probably lots of moments like that over the course of the years. But again, it was a very gradual process. There wasn't one kind of big defining moment. And the weird thing about making money is, you make it and you spend it. It's not like you should do. I kind of know now that actually, if you want to be happy, this is what you should do. You only need so much money, and the rest of it you should give away to friends, families, and charities. But when you make money, you buy more stuff. You just do. It's like you can't help yourself. You buy more cars and houses, mainly, and you don't need them because they don't make you. I mean, obviously, you need a nice place to live and all the rest of it, but they don't really make.
But was there a time when you went, yeah, I'm all right as a business person? Or have you never had that moment?
I don't think I've ever. I mean, I've had that moment a few times, but not so I've ever gone like, that's it. I mean, the other thing is, I kind of feel guilty about having money as well, in many respects, because then I'm like, well, actually, I need to make more money because there's stuff that I need to do, with money. There's charities that really need help, like for me now, Crohn's and Colitis UK really needs help. So it's not like that driver's still there, I guess. That driver to continue doing stuff and building businesses, and building social value as well as kind of economic value. So no, it never stops. I've never had a eureka moment.
You've made millions. You've built companies. You've sold shares. You've put on events. You've probably raised millions for charity. You've done all kinds of stuff, right? And Adoreum itself is a big achievement. And you've been involved in production, financing production companies, media, all kinds of businesses, whatever. I mean, are you a success?
No, not really. I mean, I kind of guess now I look back and think, yeah, I've done okay. I've done pretty well, but no, there's a lot more stuff. There's a lot more stuff. Are you a failure?
Are you a failure?
No, I don't feel like a failure.
What's the biggest failure you've had? I don't mean in business. I mean in life, really.
I don't look at things like that.
All right.
To be
Well,
honest,
let's really, you don't. Okay.
no.
Let's ask you this: if you had a lesson you don't want to repeat, an experience, a life lesson, you go, I'm not going to do that again.
Again, I don't think there is anything. There's not anything that there's not anything that really stands out to me. Really? You know, I mean, I just look at it as a, you know, it's just a journey, and there's always positives and negatives. You know, it's not.
But surely, Marcus, if you're willing to accept that you're learning positive lessons, one's got to be able to go, oh, I didn't like that, I won't do that again. I mean, I can think of lots.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about big picture stuff, kind of micro stuff I'd need to think about. But on the big picture side, I always see positives out of every negative. There always is positives out of every negative.
No, yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about what you're going to, you know, what you and hopefully we are going to do in the future. And from my point of view, I retired in my late 20s, or sort of around 30, 31. I didn't really do very much. I brought up my family and I studied psychology and did a few other bits and pieces. But now it's nice to be able to, at Adoreum, what we're doing is we're bringing people together. We have events, and we also have ideas, and we help businesses grow, either with strategy or money or bits of both. What really excites you now about the next few years?
Well, you know, the thing that excites me most, and the thing that's always excited me, is people. I love people. I mean, people is life. I mean, if there aren't people in your life, you're not having a life. Which is why I think, you know, being lonely must be the most terrible kind of affliction, or it would be for me. I love people. I love the people within our network. We've got some incredible characters in our network who have achieved some amazing things, but you know, they're friends. We know, you know. I mean, you foibles and anxieties, and I just love people.
You mix your business and social life. There's almost no demarcation. But what are you most excited about? If you were to say, okay, all right, let's ask you, in 5 years' time, right, where would you like to be? What would you like to be doing?
Pretty much the same thing that we're doing now, but I would like for us to have launched a bunch of really interesting businesses run by some, you know, really cool people, and that's obviously one of the main things that we're talking about. You know, we've spent the last couple of years looking at different sectors like dementia, genetics, media, and that's what I'm excited about, is building some really significant and important businesses, creating value not just for the shareholders, but creating value for society. I think that's the most important thing for me, and having, above all, having fun, you know, because it's all a bit shit unless you're having fun.
Well,
you know,
I think
and you've got to be working with good people, and that's really Adoreum has become a business that I guess I've created to suit my character, you know, because I love people. It's all about people. I've got attention deficit disorder, so I'm not very good at, you know, running and growing something big, you know, but what I'm really good at is adding value to lots of different things. Because I've got attention deficit disorder, I've got access to a massive network, and I love coming up with ideas. And in a sense, I kind of learned that from Rob Herstoff. I think that you can create incredible value for companies through making introductions, and that's kind of what I've done my whole life. And now we've built this incredible kind of database of relationships and this incredible kind of brand, and through that I think we can create massive value. I mean, we do every day. You know, I'm an investor and maybe shareholder in more than 20 companies, and you know, I'm thinking every day, and the team at Adoreum are thinking every day, because they're all members of the Adoreum Club, how can we help them? I mean, particularly at this time, you know, all these companies need help. You know, how can we help them through introducing people within our network to them that could really help them. And the same with the charities. The Adoreum Club has been built to support all the charities that the partners support, and you know, it's always thinking about, you know, what introductions can we make be game changing for them. As Rob used to say, move the needle. How can we move the needle for you? That's what Adoreum is. We've built an organization to move the needle for people and for companies and for charities.
Well, compassionate capitalism, really.
It is, yeah. I mean, actually, I was talking about that on the podcast yesterday. Obviously, I don't know if anybody else has ever talked about compassionate capitalism. I know you have like social capitalism and other things like that, but yeah, that's kind of what it is. That's what it is. It's compassionate capitalism. That's kind of, if I want Adoreum to stand for anything, I think that kind of encapsulates it, because we want to do good. We want to do important things for important charities, for important businesses. Any businesses that we get involved in, they've got to behave, in a sustainable way. They've got to look after their staff. They've got to behave, with integrity. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
When you were starting out, can you remember, or not even just starting out, there must have been a lot of people, or quite a few people, that really made a difference, moved your needle. People you connected with, that you learnt from, or they inspired you, or they became a catalyst for your growth into being a serial entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, obviously my dad first and foremost, and then my first kind of proper boss. He was the guy who kind of took me from Duncan Laurie to Sigma, a guy called Graham Barnett, who I'm still friends with now. And what I learned from him was hard work, basically, because he works incredibly hard, and he kind of I had that from my dad as well to an extent, but he instilled in me the importance of working hard. And again, I heard this amazing mantra recently, which I guess could be the mantra I followed in my life. Lady luck follows a person of action. The more shit you do, the more people you meet, the more ideas you have, the more you action stuff, the more you do stuff, the more luck you have. And that's what I Graham and my dad definitely taught me that. And then Rob Hersoff, what I learned a lot of stuff from Rob, because Rob is the most incredible connector. And I learned, I guess I took that whole kind of networking, connecting thing to another level when I started working with Rob. And then a lot of people I've met within Adoreum, Twiz, I love Twiz. He's kind of like my life coach. He's one of our partners, and I've learned a lot of stuff from him. Just to check yourself, constantly, to make sure you're not being a dick, and you're being kind to yourself and being kind to other people. I've learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from all my best mates, actually, from school, who I speak to every week. Mainly, again, not to get too far ahead of yourself, or always remember who you are. And then learn a lot about compassion from Andy. Huge amount about compassion from Andy. And learning a lot of stuff by working with you as well, because you're a super brain, and you've got an intellect that the rest of us don't have. So yeah, doing lots of exciting stuff with you. Really excited about all the businesses that we're going to create together. So yeah, it's just like anyone, I've had some really bad experiences with people in business, and I've had some really great experiences with people in business. And as you get older, you kind of get to understand who are the people that you want to surround yourself with. And that's what I've done. I kind of do feel, to an extent, that we've got Adoreum to a point now where we've just got a lovely community of people. We're really careful about who we let in. And, by and large, everyone is cool and lovely, and you want to hang out with. And, as soon as we sense any kind of sociopathic behavior, and we've seen a lot of it, and we still see it. We still see it all the time, don't we? There's a lot of them out there. All the guards go up, and we form square and repel them.
Some of the most charming people are initially charming people are sociopaths. But I guess what Adoreum is doing, it's about it's almost channeling you, really. It's a way of trying to choreograph human relationships, and hopefully help a bit of business along at the same time. But I suspect, knowing you as I do, that you do all this for nothing. So it's a great privilege. I think it's something we could teach our kids, that if you can be authentic and you can make money by doing what you'd be doing anyway for nothing, that's an amazing thing. So I think we should probably end on that note. And we've got I just really want to ask you one question. What tips have you got for everyone at home during this coronavirus lockdown and coping in business? What would you do? How would you get yourself together?
I think now is a good time to think about strategy and to think about longer term. But some people don't have that luxury. Some people are really battling to keep their businesses alive. And I've been there. I've been in that position, so I know how. I mean, not obviously in a crisis of this scale, but I was in this position in 2000 when the internet bubble burst, and I was in this position in 2008 when Lehman's went bust. So I do understand how difficult it is to get through tough periods like this. But it's a good time to kind of to think about things, to try and have some kind of clarity. I think it's really important to be in the moment and appreciate everything that you have and plan. And more than anything, and it sounds like a massive cliche, be compassionate. Be compassionate to people. Be compassionate to everyone that you encounter, and that includes your staff. You've got to look after your staff because they're scared, they're frightened. You've got to do whatever you can to support them. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to support all of the CEOs of the companies that I'm a shareholder in. Give them advice, give them hope. But I understand how difficult it is for a lot of people. I've been there before. Fortunately, I'm not in that position now. But the opportunities are going to come out of this. Every kind of major kind of economic crisis that I've been through as an entrepreneur, amazing opportunities have sprung up, and you've got to be on your toes. You've got to be sensitive to what's going on out there and act accordingly. I think the world is, as you said at the beginning of this, the world is going to change fundamentally, but I think it could change for the better. I mean, it's terrible, all the suffering that people are going through now. It's awful, but it does feel to me like the world needed a bit of a reset. And as Andy Orrick said, it's kind of like Mother Nature has sent us all to our rooms to think about what we've done. I think some good things are going to come out of this.
Well, I hope so. I mean, change creates opportunity. I mean, my personal takeaway is that there is change, and you might be vulnerable if you have an ongoing business, but you need to change, but not panic. And I personally feel that this is a time for honesty, and I want that from the politicians. We should be honest with our family. We should be honest with our employees, our partners, and communicate the vulnerability. Don't bullshit. Don't pull the wool over anybody's eyes, including yourself. Just go, hang on. But also,
that's what we're very good at in Adoreum. Me, you, Andy, Rob, Andy, lots of Andys in Adoreum. We're always talking about our anxieties, our vulnerabilities. I don't think any of us are arrogant and kind of pretend to be anything that we're not, or feel anything that we're not. We're all absolutely honest, and I think that's the best way to be. If you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling anxious, talk about it. Be honest about it. Talk to your family and talk to your friends and talk to your business partners about it.
But also, the fact is, none of us are in control, and much depression comes out of a feeling of, and much anxiety comes out of feeling not being in control, and we aren't in control. But that's all right. Sometimes you just have to be a passenger and I just say everyone should be accepting of their feelings at the moment, and in business or otherwise, and actually say, well, hang on, soon the storm will pass. There'll be some wreckage, but wreckage creates building sites, and I'd rather be we should all be builders. Marcus, I think we should probably let these poor people.
Yeah, no, that was good, mate. I enjoyed that.
All right. Well, thank you.
Bit of therapy.
But be optimistic. I think there'll be a lot of fun and a lot of money made, as well as change. And if anybody wants to join Adoreum, either if you're a company or an individual, check out the website, and you'll find lots of interesting content and people to talk to on there too. So thank you. Thanks, Marcus.
Good. Thanks, guys.